really saving that Savior to draw away their biggest threats, and it doesn't look like they have one that they plan to land. They could put down the Harbinger. Not sure if they have anything with flash, but let's go ahead and make sure we get the win. Win secured, I think. Hello and welcome to the Florida Men Gaming. My name is Furion and today we'll be playing Magic the Gathering Arena. But before we get started, I would like to ask that you do a couple things for us here. Please like this video, comment down below, let us know how we're doing, what you think, and what you'd like to see more of. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers and would love your support on the journey. And if you're over on Rumble, go ahead and hit that Rumble button. Every little bit of support does count. For today's deck, we're going to be playing something called the Tax Box. Now, this was a deck that I had proposed initially on Twitter, tagged content creator Arjuna from ArenaCraft Podcast on it, and he reacted to it. It got a little bit of reaction from various people, and for a minute I thought I had something special. So let's take a look at what we were trying to build and what we were trying to work around. I'll talk to you about the evolution of where this deck has gone. You'll see some gameplay footage, and I'll give you a little bit of a post-game wrap once we've got to the end of all that as to where it ended up and where I think it needs to go if it's going to have any success. So this deck takes advantage of a card called the Mirror Box. This is a Kamigawa artifact that is a 3-mana colorless artifact. The legend rule doesn't apply to permanents you control. Each legendary creature you control gets +1/+1. Each non-token creature you control gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with the same name as that creature. This card is intriguing. The reason that this is the Tax Box deck is I am trying to take advantage of that mechanic by running 4 copies of Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. Why 4, you ask, not 3? Because I can put all 4 on the board if I have a Mirror Box down. To play off the Thalia, we are also trying to run 4 copies of Reidane, God of the Worthy. Reidane has 2 phases, both of which are incredibly effective. The first phase is the God of the Worthy side, the legendary creature God. With flying and vigilance, no lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped, and non-creature spells your opponent casts with mana value 4 or greater cost an additional 2 mana. So, if you have multiple Thalias on the board, making their 2-mana spells suddenly cost 4 and 1 Reidane, those 4-mana spells now cost 6. And if you have 2 Reidanes, those 6-mana spells now cost 8. You can put an entire hand out of reach of an opponent with 2 or 3 creatures on the board. The other side is the Valkyria Protector's Shield. If a source an opponent controls would deal damage to you or a permanent you control, prevent 1 of that damage. Whenever you or another permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless its controller pays 1. This taxing effect is incredibly effective. It keeps them from putting targeted removal up against you immediately. And if you have multiple taxes in play and multiple of these creatures in play, it really stacks up quickly. So other cards we're trying to run with this. The Elite Spellbinder to take spells from their hand and add tax value to it. The exiled spells cost 2 more to tax. It can target anything that is a spell, whether it is a creature, an instant, a sorcery, enchantment, artifact, you name it. 4 copies of the Skyclave Apparition. If they do manage to land something on the board, we're trying to take it out, especially the artifacts, the enchantments, and the other items there that can be a little bit of a problem. It is limited though, can only target spells that are 4 or less. So any 5-mana creatures, 5-mana artifacts, 5-mana enchantments, and they are just out of our range. We are running 4 copies of the Stonebinder Familiar to take advantage of the various exile effects built in, 3 copies of the Paladin Class to add additional mana cost and difficulty to the spells that they would cast during our turn. So this turns off some counter spells, some targeted removal spells that they might throw our way. 2 copies of the Fateful Absence. This card, of course, is incredibly useful for just targeted removal, and what you'll come to see in some of the gameplay footage here is the problem that we have. This particular deck you're looking at is a version 5 or 6. We ran through several different versions trying to fine-tune the original concept deck. This is the one that we finished playing with, and I'm not going to lie to you, the gameplay footage ahead, you're going to see couple of wins, but when we get to the post game you'll see the actual stat breakdown as to where this deck ended up, and we'll talk about where I think it needs to go in the future. And 4 copies in this current iteration of the Savior of Ollenbock. This card is a new favorite of mine for a simple mechanic that most people I have talked to seem to overlook. Now, when the Savior of Ollenbock trains, it has training, you exile up to 1 other target creature card from the battlefield or from a graveyard. When Savior of Ollenbock leaves the battlefield, put the exiled cards onto the battlefield under their owner's control. What I like about this card is its ability to act as a recursion spell. So if you have creatures down, the opponent manages to get rid of them. This card, while it's training, can start grabbing those creatures from your own graveyard, making it much more difficult to put the equation in the opponent's head of, do I block this? If the block would kill it, but they're going to have to face down an Elite Spellbinder and a Thalia and maybe even a Reidane, depending on how many times you've trained it up, it is a 1-for-3 trade in your favor. That, to me, is worth its weight in gold. This deck right now, we're running 24 lands in this iteration, 22 snow-covered plains, 2 Faceless Havens to avoid drawing into nothing but the colorless. And with that, we'll get you into the gameplay footage. You'll get to see how this deck plays out a little bit, and then we'll talk about it at the end here. So we will see you in the first game. Alright, we have found an opponent. I'm not taking the chance on a hand with that little mana. But this hand right here is exactly what we've been waiting to try. So, we're going to go ahead and bin, for the sake of argument here, the Skyclave Apparition. Hold on to the Thalia and hold on to the Mirror Box, and then hold on to our butts. Gonna skip, of course, the Thalia on this turn. Opponent looking now to see what they end up doing. Oh, and that's what we want. Double Thalia means that we'll be able to hit that Mirror Box and get them pumping. Packsong Pup. The goodest boy. Oh my goodness, we now have 3 Thalias in hand. 1 more land and the party starts and doesn't stop. Tovalar the Dire Overlord. Packsong Pup starting to get big. There's the land, and here comes the party. Now opponent's spells are going to cost 2 additional to cast. I now have 2 4/4 first strikers, and a third one will be on the way next turn. This game is about to spiral viciously if they don't have something to answer it right now. There's the Thundering Rebuke, but it took all the mana they had to cast it. Now, do they swing? They don't. And with the Reidane coming down, we are now in even more advantageous position. Howlpack Piper, that is a good card. Let's go ahead and slow down their mana here. Unfortunately, the Howlpack just got offset by the Night Flip. Do they have the land for the Avabruck? This is the one card series here that could throw the entire game into disarray for us. We have to hope they attack this turn, or we're not going to have a good answer. Well, we're going to get the Daytime Flip. They've got enough for the Avabruck, so this game is probably over. That is a scary girl. Oh boy, that is lethal coming in right away. Hopefully this stops their draw. Well, with that, we just got outraced by the wolves. Alright, we have an opponent. Let's see if we can stop the slide. This is a very slow hand. We're going to go ahead and mulligan, and we'll keep that. Hope that we draw into the third land. At this point, if we're having trouble getting to 3, we may have even more trouble getting to 4, so let's go ahead and play the Paladin Class. We'll drop the Mirror Box. Actually, we'll drop the Reidane first here, as the Reidane will inhibit their Snowland play. Gonna go ahead and let the damage through. And the opponent has the grasp. The land is a godsend, as we're going to pump this Thalia to the moon. The opponent doesn't want it. Alright, well, wasn't the splashiest win, but we'll take the intimidation factor. Alright, we have our next opponent, and this is a good starting hand. We're going to go ahead and take it, run the Paladin Class out on 1 before we draw into one of our Thalias. Stonebinder on 2, as it doesn't seem to matter at the moment. A Spellbinder or Apparition on 3, given the situation, so we can start building it up. Fortunately, with the Paladin Class on board, counter magic the opponent may have is going to cost 1 more to cast, so it will keep most average spells out of range. Let's go ahead and take a quick peek at what's going on in their hand. There's the Fading Hope for 2. And Key to the archive. Behold the unspokeable. Let's go ahead and take the key. Push that a little further out. We draw into a Thalia, and that key becomes essentially worthless. Opponent may have the borrowed time next turn to answer whatever's going on, but I'm kind of hoping they do. Let's go ahead and Stonebinders. Let's see if we draw out that Fading Hope. It'd be a silly play to Fading Hope a Spellbinder, but I've seen people do stranger things. There's the Fading Hope on the Stonebinder instead of the Spellbinder. Too many words with similar names. Next turn we'll be able to Stonebinders into the Inquisitor Captain, and if we draw into an exile effect, have a really good day. Or, even better, Stonebinder into Apparition. I hope you enjoyed it while it lasted, but your hand's about to get even uglier. Let's go ahead and take away whatever that is. I don't feel like reading at the moment, so we're just going to push it off to the side and stare at it longingly, like the opponent is. Opponent doubling up their board presence. Do we get the Thalia? We don't, and because the Apparition doesn't hit anything on the board, we're going to go ahead and just hold it. Next turn, depending on how this one goes, we'll just pump the Paladin Class and supercharge the Spellbinder and hopefully swing in for something akin to victory. The opponent taps all the way out for key. That's the opening we wanted. That's lethal in the air. They're tapped out. Nothing they can do to stop it. So, ladies and gentlemen, taxation bites again. Alright, we have our next opponent and a hand that can work. Potentially less than ideal, but I guess we'll find out. So far this deck has not quite performed on the ladder the way it performed in the play queue. Play queue, of course, is the Wild West, so you never know what you're going to run into, but I've run into a fair amount of aggro here that has really offset everything we've tried to accomplish. Looking like we're facing off against life gain, so we're going to go ahead and get started right away getting our Thalia down to the board. With the 4 mana, we are going to be able to get our Mirror Box enchantment down if it ever shows up, and we have the Valorous Stance available this coming turn if we elect to not play the Savior of Ollenbock, which at this point, with nothing on field worth exiling, we're going to hold on to it. That is a intriguing series of cards in hand. Let's go ahead and push Fateful Absence even further away, not something I really feel like dealing with in this moment. And we'll go ahead and swing in. Land keeps flowing, which is good for us. We're going to go ahead and play the Ollenbock down. Continue to swing and set the opponent further and further back from their desired goal. With the Ollenbock, we can keep it in reserve to block the 1/1, and then also utilize it if they do manage to land one of their bigger threats to clear the way with exile. I'm going to go ahead and save its triggers for now. Also hold up that Valorous Stance, so if they do end up hitting the mana that they need for that Fateful Absence, we will be effectively protected. There's the land. So, does the opponent target the Thalia? They do. This will probably be the scoop. And we still get the clue. That is broken. Well, good thing we got that extra land. There is no happy middle ground, folks. We have now drawn land on pretty much every turn. I want to say this is the opening hand we had, except for maybe the Spellbinder. And we'll again continue to slow play. We have another Thalia on hand ready to go. Really saving that Savior to draw away their biggest threats. And it doesn't look like they have one that they plan to land. They could put down the Harbinger. Not sure if they have anything with flash, but let's go ahead and make sure we get the win. Win secured. I think they just kind of gave up. I just realized my mic was muted this whole time, so I talked my way through the intro and had nothing there. So took a risky keep. As this deck has proven so far, it is feast or famine, and by feast I mean fill you up to the point of exploding gluttony when it comes to our land draws here. We are starving at the moment, and the play we had, it looks like it's not panning out. Playing against a very obvious life gain deck, Cleric Class on the board, Angel of Unity coming down and pumping their potential next play. But this right here will be advantageous, as it looks like they could be playing an all-snow land base, and if that's the case, this will set them back. Impassioned Orator, that is a good pickup for them. But if they're sitting on a Righteous Valkyrie in hand, that is going to be a big girl coming down in just a minute. Fortunately, with the Valorous stance, we might be able to offset what she can do. The question is, will we get that opportunity, and do we want to try and save time by pumping up the Paladin class? There's the Thalia. So let's go ahead and drop our Mirror Box. That will end up being the play here. That pumps just like we were hoping to do with the Paladin class, and gives us time to drop down that Thalia next turn. Another Cleric class. Interesting. So the sooner we get this Thalia down, the better it will be for us. Oh, that's beautiful. They've been pumping a Voice of the Blessed. That is going to come in summoning sick. Not enough to give itself indestructible here. And we're just going to take it right off the board this next turn. Double Thalia. We love to see it. Goodbye, Voice of the Blessed. You are no longer welcome here. Now if we can draw into that land, Thalia is going to come down double strong here and really offset them. Beauty of the Vigilance, we can just continue to swing away with little to no consequence. And there's the big Valkyrie. So that's going to be another big pump up for the opponent. Do they end up, or can I draw the Exile? Ooh, that is a nice card. We're going to go ahead and play it, drop the Thalia, and hold. Hopefully they don't have another big Valkyrie ready to drop, because that will swing this game just sickeningly into their favor. Land draws, once again, the bane of our existence, up to 23, down from the normal baseline starter of 24, and that right there is probably going to be it for us, folks. They're going to drop two massive cards on the board here, draw to 1,000,000 health, and smack us in the face in a really devastating way. There's the Skyclave Apparition. And there goes all hope for us. Down to 7. Oh, look at that. Another Reidane. That's cute. Water, water everywhere, and not a drop to drink. Well, the trials and tribulations of our mana continue. We have now gone up to 24 land, made some minor adjustments in our creature base to give us more chances to hit on the Inquisitor Captain, and are still starting with 2 land openers. Fortunately, the game has heard my complaints and decided to rectify the situation. I'm sure I will not see another... Oh, okay. Now I'm just being mean to myself. Could be playing black-white tokens. Let's go ahead and cause a little bit of an interruption here. The Restoration of El Ganjo. Someone has been watching some CGB videos. Gonna go ahead and swing in. Next turn we'll put that restoration a little further out. If we get the absolute nut draw, we'll end up with a Thalia, which we can play next turn to slow down this one, which just came down. And we'll get the Reidane on the field within a turn or so of that. We could really use a mirror box at this point, though. They don't have anything in the graveyard, so nothing for them to draw out with this particular restoration. We've pushed their other restoration further away. So now... Oh, that is a very intriguing playline, dropping a creature land into the graveyard and getting it back. That is a really clever ramp. Are they gonna sacrifice the restoration? Intriguing. Well, hate to say sucks to be them, but sucks to be them, as I had 3 of them in hand, so congratulations, sir. Your efforts were for naught. And your Sorin the Mirthless is still out of... Oh, now it's in reach. We are going to eat it with the Skyclave Apparition. Feel free to play whatever you want. There's Sorin. Full tap down. Gonna get the chump blocker up. There's another land for us, which is really nice. Let's go ahead and there he goes. Alright, the next opponent is up. I love Dr. Pepper, but this one's gonna have to eat it. Another questionable keep on this. We're going to go ahead and mulligan. There's the 3rd land we wanted, and that is a great setup. We're going to go ahead and keep it, drop one of the 2 Thalias, as we have plenty of them in the deck, and set ourselves up here. And as we have proven in the past, we're just going to draw nothing but land from here on out. So this is one of those hands. Good to know. But this next turn, we're going to play out that Spellbinder and start disrupting their plans. Didn't mean to predict the future there, but here we are with all of our lands again. Well, you're fun. Let's go ahead and take away the gold span and hope that we draw into one of our Reidanes. We'll take the Inquisitor Captain. If we can draw into the exile for that Eye Twitch, we'll be in really good shape. Opponent is up to 4 mana, potentially a 5th in hand. Let's go ahead and just remove our aerial obstacle and go ahead and swing home for big damage. This is going to start stacking up in a very nasty way, and I don't think the opponent has anything quite yet that will allow them to clear this board. Shambling Ghast, that's not going to do it. Another Inquisitor Captain. Do I still have enough gas in the deck to draw? No, I don't. Good to know. Gonna have to make some blocks. Oh, that was the right call. The first strike would have killed the Ghast, which could have then killed the Spellbinder, but you didn't do it. You hate to see it, folks. Do they have the board wipe? Even if they do, it would cause them to play most of their turn, and I've got the Faceless Haven on deck. They're out, ladies and gentlemen. Rakdos bites the dust. Alright, the next opponent is up, and so is the next iteration of the deck. So far, we are looking at version 5.0. It's taken a while to refine this. We're currently 6 and 8 with this type of mono-white attempt here. Not seeing Mirror Box nearly as often as we'd like. The lands have been questionable at best. Inquisitor Captain has whiffed on just about every attempt we've tried to cast her. And we're just floundering right now. Opponent is showing Azorius Sleeves, although that might not be Azorius, that might be Esper. Pretty sure it's Azorius. Black-white land on the board. This looks like clerics. Go ahead and put out a body to slow that Angel of Unity down. Do they draw into the nuts? Voice of the Blast. That is a big pickup. And that is just what we were hoping to draw. Skyclave Apparition makes you effectively worthless. Or the Skyclave Hierophant. That is a good pickup. We'll go ahead and play it next turn once we have a chance to play the captain. There's another apparition, just continuing to clear the path for us. Does the opponent have a meat hook? Vanishing Verse. Okay. Well, that doesn't get him back the aura, as he goes straight to the exile zone. That is a big body, though. Didn't consider that. And a big Professor of Symbology coming in, too. Vanishing Verse, reduced to memory. What did you elect to go for here? Necrotic Fumes, makes sense. Probably going to go after the Reidane. Going to go ahead and hold. No need to give them any stupid trades. Those lands are definitely useful in this deck type. Yep, that's right. Your body is no longer big enough to stop the Reidane. Do you do the sacrifice play now? Looks like you're thinking about it. Alright, so you've elected to eliminate all aerial threats. Well, I don't think you've got a draw in you, but let's see what happens. You do have a draw in you. That is shocking to me. Let's go ahead and take a quick peek at the land you're holding. Malakar Rebirth. Well, we'll make it less convenient. Let's go ahead and get rid of the token. Make them elect to trade here. They could actually take the Savior off the board, but that's okay. As everything that they've done so far has put us in exile, we're not too concerned about it. Alright, there goes the Cleric. Unfortunately, that does bring the body of the Inquisitor Captain down, but the bright side is we can now use the Savior of Ollenbock to grab it. The opponent doesn't want any more of this, as they are now gone. Alright, welcome back. So what I have up on screen right now is an alternate deck. What I'm going to show you is the stat line. This deck overall on the day of recording performed relatively poorly. Now I'm going to chalk that up to a couple of factors. First reason here is we're looking at a 7-13 record on this deck. Overall win rate 35%. Did perform in the matchups against Orzhov very well, performed against Rakdos very well, won a game against Azorius and Mono Black. I'm going to chalk up the deck's poor performance to a couple of things. I got very impatient trying to find wins and made a lot of changes very quickly, not letting games build up. So we had some iterations here. I have 6 versions of the deck that I played trying to find some footage. Version 6 went 0-2, version 5 1-3, version 4 went 2-1, but after the first loss I said it's time to make another change, and I might have torqued the deck in a bad direction. Version 3 1-3, version 2 2-2. Overall, this deck is doing something that I feel is interesting, but I also feel borders on the severe jank and puts it into a dangerous unperforming ability territory. So what I have here on screen is what I hope is the next iteration and answer to that problem. I'm scaling back what I'm considering the full jank portion of this strategy, which is max out legends. I've brought Thalia down to 3, the Reidane up to 3, and what you're looking at here is a modification of my Say Please mono white exile deck. I have removed the borrowed times in favor of the mirror boxes. Altered the Paladin Class count, kept the creature count high, and have tuned it for Alchemy to bring the Inquisitor Captain online. With the 4 mirror boxes, I'm hoping that this version of the deck gives me the punchiness to be able to compete with aggro, as we went 0 for the century against Gruul. Gruul Werewolves and other fast-paced aggro decks just got ahead of us and stayed ahead of us, and we were never able to recover against them. So my hope is that this deck has enough disruption, interruption, exile, and effects to stay ahead of that and be competitive. The problem, I think, is it's a fun idea, which is really a pain in the ass when you're looking at it from the perspective of spellcasting mages, but from an execution standpoint, the first couple of iterations are, I like this idea as a concept, but I don't think I gave enough of those concepts that I had created time to really maturate, and as a result I think that the win-loss rate suffered for it. So I'm trying to take the idea, work it into a shell that I have known worked, and see if that actually plays out. The other thing that we ran into a lot, and what was kind of disheartening in some of the games, was we ran into consistent mana issues across multiple games, which I think led me to make the changes more desperately, trying to up our land count from 22 to 24, and bring it back down to 23, various little things, and we would take 2 land hands hoping to draw into a 3rd land, which we would either never see or see when it was too late to make the effective game plan moves that we would need to make to have any chance of victory, or we would flood out. So this deck, when I've played it in its original iteration, the Say Please iteration, has performed remarkably well, drawn the mana it needs, tops out at 4 mana necessary to cast your major spells, and has gone in from there. The other thing that I've noticed that you can potentially set yourself up for in a dangerous position is Thalia. Thalia is an excellent card for disrupting spell-heavy decks. Problem is, if you're running spells or enchantments yourself, Thalia can very quickly tax yourself out of your own game. So if your goal is to play multiple Thalias and you play Thalia on 2, you can't play the Mirror Box until 4. You can't play your Circle of Confinement until 3. You can't play Borrowed Time until 4. If you do manage to get that Mirror Box down and then you start doubling up the Thalias, you very quickly take yourself out of your own removal game. So you have to be very careful with your timing on Thalia. Reidane, multiple Reidanes is excellent. It doesn't affect you necessarily negatively in any real way. By comparison, but the Thalia is one that you have to be careful with or it will bite you. So I'm going to continue to test this. It was fun to get some, interaction on Twitter and from people who I feel, are respectable, incredible minds in the Magic space. I hope that, as this deck continues to be fine-tuned, that it finds a home, countering and fighting against the spell-heavy meta, especially with the new Jeskai, I guess, face hugger card that does so much for spells that if you can tax back the stuff that it's removing, that maybe it makes that card unplayable if you run across this particular type of deck in a matchup. Either way, it's exciting to have had some recognition for an idea, but now it's time to make sure that that idea works before I start spouting off at the mouth about it. And with that, I hope to see you guys in a future iteration of this video where I can show you some success more so than what we got to see today. With that, though, this is Furion from the Florida Men Gaming, signing off.